Referrals are quietly killing your consulting business, and nobody talks about why. They feel good, but you can't control them. You can't scale them, and when they stop, your pipeline disappears. So if your business depends on referrals, you don't have a system, you have dependency. In this video, I'll show you how to get clients without referrals step by step. And let's talk about why referrals keep you stuck. You'll be like Winnie the Pooh here. Because referrals feel good because they're warm. They're easy and they convert, but they hide a much bigger problem. You don't control when they happen. Because you don't have a lead problem, you have a control problem. Because your pipeline only moves when someone else remembers you exist. That's not a system, that's just hope. And hope is not scalable. Again, because real business, they don't rely on referrals. They build predictable acquisition systems. Because if you can't turn client acquisition on, you guys can't stabilize revenue. And if you can't stabilize revenue, you guys can't scale. You can't do all this stuff. Because here's the thing, top consultants don't ask, hey, who could refer me? They ask, how do I control the deal flow? Here's the thing that what referrals could get you. Yeah, you could get $10,000, $20,000, maybe $30,000 a month. But they won't take you beyond that consistently. Because you can't multiply something you can't control. You can't forecast it, you can't optimize it, and you can't scale it. Here's the thing, if your growth depends on other people, you guys don't have a business. You just have one giant network, and networks don't scale predictably. Yeah, so the goal isn't to eliminate referrals. The goal is to remove the dependence on them. So you'd be like chilling like a villain right here. Because look, referrals should be bonus revenue. It shouldn't be your primary acquisition channel. Here's the thing, referrals are not a strategy, they're just a side effect. And if your business depends on them, you guys are one quiet month away from having panic and no sales. Alright, and this is the shift. And most consultants operate here on hope. Hope someone remembers you, hope someone sends a referral, and hope something comes through. And hope is not a strategy. It's just a placeholder for something you guys don't control. And the problem with hope, this won't ever scale. The goal isn't having more referral guys. It's all about having control. Control where the lead comes from, control where they come in, and how they move forward. Because professional business don't rely on chance, guys. They build systems that create predictable outcomes. Because if you can't turn acquisition on, you guys don't have a real pipeline. And control comes from one thing, having a system. A system that attracts the right people, a system that qualifies them, that moves them forward, and converts them into clients. Sure, referrals might get you to $10,000, $20,000, or $30,000 months, but installing systems take you beyond that consistently. And once the system's in place, you guys don't chase clients. You now have a pipeline. You now have a predictive flow of interest, qualified, and ready buyers. Again, let me repeat, you don't need more referral guys, you just need a client acquisition system. Because referrals are just random, but having systems are repeatable. Alright, and now we move to authority over attention. Because authority attracts and it doesn't chase. You see, most consultants, they think you need more attention, more content, more posts, and more visibility. Thinking you need to be geared up like this guy. But attention alone doesn't create clients. Here's the attention reality. Attention without structure doesn't convert. Yeah, you can get views, likes, and comments and still have no pipeline. Because attention is just interest, and interest doesn't pay. So you're just gonna be one of those frustrated content creators on Instagram and TikTok doing all this work and not getting paid. And you're gonna be like, I'll work for money. Hey, where's the money? Authority is when someone sees your content and thinks, hey, this person understands my problem. This actually makes sense, and this feels like the right decision. Like, bam. And it's all about having that perception control, where authority isn't what you say about yourself, it's what the buyer believes about you. And belief is built through clear thinking, having structured frameworks, and consistent messaging, and is not doing random content. You see, high-level consultants, they don't chase leads. You're not gonna be like this guy. They position themselves so right that the right buyers find them, understand them, and trust them. And when that happens, inbound stops being random and it becomes predictable. You see, most consultants try to get more attention, but attention without structure doesn't convert. Authority plus structure, that's the thing that creates all the clients. Yeah, let me remind you, you don't need more attention, you just need more authority. Because attention gets you seen, but it's authority that gets you chosen. And then we move to the client acquisition system. So instead of relying on referrals, you install a structure. You see, this is where traffic comes in. Traffic comes from the content, from the ads, partnerships, referral, it doesn't matter. In step one, it comes from the authority asset. They don't go straight to a call, they go to an authority asset, whether it's a book, a training, or a framework. You know, something that explains their problem, their method, and the outcome. So you're gonna be like, this guy dropping some knowledge. And this is where most people get it wrong. They all try to sell on the call, but the call should not be doing the selling, guys. The system should already be doing that. And then we go to step two, the pre-sold prospects. So by the time someone books, they already understand what you do, how it works, and why that matters. So they're not cold, they are pre-sold. So the decision doesn't happen on the call, it happens before the call. We have a belief installed. Here's the thing about having an asset. The asset installs belief, certainty, and direction. So the call becomes simple. You're gonna be like, this guy taking calls being easy peasy. And then we go to step three, the strategy call. Here's the thing, the call isn't a pitch, it's just a diagnosis. Because you're not here convincing, we're here confirming it. Because this is how high ticket consulting is supposed to work. So you're not asking, do you want to buy? You're asking, is this solution right for you? And that's having control. And then we move to step four, client conversion. This is when the system is built correctly. Conversion becomes predictable because each step did its job. Here's the ascension logic on that. You don't force the sell, you guide the buyer through a progression from content, understanding, trust, and decision. Having a system handles that automatically. So this replaces referrals not by removing them, but by removing the dependence on them. Because you're not waiting for clients anymore, you guys are creating them. Alright, let me ask you something. You're already getting traffic, you're already creating content, people are clicking, watching, engaging, but the calendar isn't filling the way it should. The gap between interest and book calls, that's the leak. And in my experience, every expert at audit has these 2 to 3 leaks happening in the exact same places. So if you want me to find yours, go ahead and book a free 15-minute funnel leak audit below, and I'll look at your funnel and tell you exactly what's leaking and show you what to fix first. No pitch, just the answer. The link is in the description below. Alright, now we move to the conversion path. Here's why most content doesn't convert. You see, most content doesn't convert not because it's bad, and it's not because it lacks value, but because it has nowhere to go. See, here's the typical content. You get posts, reels, value, and no system. It gets views, likes, and engagement, and then nothing. Then you're just gonna be confused like this guy. So here's the hard truth. If your content doesn't lead somewhere, it's just entertainment and it's not client acquisition. And entertainment doesn't build a pipeline. So you're just gonna be like a dancing monkey all day, dancing online. Here's the thing. Buy alone doesn't convert. Because information doesn't create decision, guys. Having belief does. So if your content doesn't shift how the buyer sees the problem, positions your method, or builds certainty, they're just gonna assume and move on. Like Regina George and her crew on Mean Girls, and they're just gonna walk by and not notice you.
You can't sit with us!
So you're gonna be sad like this guy, wondering what's going on. Alright, now look at this. Every piece of content has a job. It all leads to somewhere, to an authority asset, a framework, and a next step. Again, this builds trust, alignment, and direction. Here's the thing about having a structured pipeline. The content is not a random output. It's the top of a conversion system. So each piece should move the buyer from interest, understanding, to a decision. So if it doesn't move them forward, it's not part of your pipeline. So it's not just, that was helpful, but what's the next step? Again, let me remind you, content without a path creates attention, but content with a path creates clients. So you don't need more content, you just need the content that leads somewhere. Alright, now we move up to the follow-up system. And here's where most money is lost. You generate the lead, they're interested, they click, they engage, and then nothing happens. See, no follow-up, no reminder, no reinforcement, or no next step. Here's the brutal truth. If your system stops after the first interaction, you don't have a funnel, you have a missed opportunity. So you're gonna be like this guy losing all sales opportunity all day, every day. Because that lead was already thinking about buying. They didn't say no, they just didn't act yet. Here's the thing about time and belief. Most buyers don't decide instantly. They need time to resolve the risk, timing, and the confidence. Remember, follow-up isn't pressure, it's the completion of the decision process. Now look at this. Lead comes in, they receive email, SMS, and authority content. So they get reminded, they get educated, and they're guided until they're ready to go on a call and then become a client. And let's talk about the professional follow-up. High-level consultants don't rely on memory. They rely on structured follow-up systems, having this in place. Because deals are rarely lost due to the lack of interest. They're lost due to the lack of timing, and follow-up bridges that gap. And let's talk about the recovery angle. This is where you recover revenue, not by getting more leads, but by converting the ones you already have. Because the fortune is in the follow-up. Because follow-up turns interest into action. So you're not losing leads, you're losing follow-up. And if you don't follow up, something else will take your attention. And to remind you, this is why it's important to have this follow-up system in place. Alright, and then we go to the full system recap. Because this is the entire system. You don't rely on referrals anymore, you replace them with something you can control. In step 1, replacing referrals with a system. Here you stop depending on people and install a system that generates opportunities consistently. This is the difference between random revenue and predictable revenue. Because random equals hoping something that comes in, while system is knowing something will. And then we go step 2, build authority and not just content. Again guys, you don't just post content, you build authority. Because content gets attention, but authority gets trust. See, when the buyer believes, the sell becomes easy. Because you're no longer trying to convince them, you're confirming what they already feel. And then we go to step 3, guide leads to a conversion path. Because you don't leave people guessing, every step leads to somewhere. From content, asset, and call. Because buyers should never feel lost. They should feel guided. Because guided buyers make decisions faster. And then we go step 4, follow up automatically. Because you don't rely on memory, you rely on systems. Here, follow becomes consistent, structured, and predictable. Again, if your business depends on remembering to follow up, you guys don't have leverage, you have a liability. And then we go step 5, turning inbound into clients. And when everything's connected, the inbound stops being random. It becomes qualified, pre-sold, and ready. And here, you're not forcing yourself. You're guiding the buyer through a process from interest, trust, and decision. And a system that handles that. This is what replaces referrals. No more effort, but a system. So you don't need to be chasing clients anymore, guys. You just need a system that creates them. So if you're already getting traffic or attention, but not enough client booking calls, the problem isn't your offer. It's the part of your funnel that you're not looking at. I'll audit your full post-click system, find the 3 highest leverage leaks, and fix them in 7 7 days. Go ahead and DM me link on Instagram or book a free 15-minute audit call in the description below. And let's find where you're losing clients. Alright, I'll see you in the next video. Jeremy out.